into your early life, romance game, and in that 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 game, and in.
Thank you, Trailblazers. And now it's time to turn our attention to some Trailblazers who are just beginning to burn their trails and doing a fantastic job. The Genes in Space program, founded in 2015 by Boeing and Mini PCR Bio and supported by the ISS National Lab and New England Biolabs, holds an annual student research competition in which students in grades 7 through 12 propose DNA experiments that leverage the unique tools and environment aboard the ISS. The winning proposals are developed into flight projects that are sent to the space station and carried out by the astronauts on board. This panel will be hosted by the very first Genes in Space winner and current Harvard MD doctoral student, Anna Sofia Bugarayev. Please join me in welcoming Anna Sofia and her guests to the stage.
Thank you all so much for joining us today. As you just heard, I'm Anna Sofia, and I'm here with some other alums of the Genes in Space program. First, I just want to tell you guys a little bit more about Genes in Space. So Genes in Space is a free national STEM competition for students in grades 7 through 12. As you heard, it was founded in 2015 by Boeing and Mini PCR Bio. This year, we had over 10,000 student applications, and since 2015, they've flown 10 student-led investigations, which have turned into 8 peer-reviewed publications with more in the pipeline. And again, so we've reached more schools, about 234, and states 38 across the United States than any previous year, and the growth only continues. Just to get an idea of some of those students who have been involved over the years, these are an array of some of the winning competitions that ended up flying to the International Space Station. And these students have been responsible for some incredible advances in space. Mini PCR projects were responsible for not only the first PCR in space, but also the first use of CRISPR in space and the first use of cell-free technology, a platform called BioBits, developed by a scientist here at MIT. So now I think I'd love if you guys, so these are, like I said, some alums of past competitions, if you guys could take a moment and introduce yourselves and tell us where were you when you were involved with Genes in Space and what are you up to now?
Awesome. Hi, everyone. Well, first of all, I have no idea where they got that picture. Definitely not the most flattering, but back then, that's almost, I think, 9 years ago now, I was like just a high school junior, 17. I went to school in Sammamish, Washington. Probably best known for being like near like Microsoft's campus. Then yeah, just kind of stumbled. It was the first year of the competition, and stumbled into this competition, and this whirlwind happened, and ended up in Boston to build this experiment. And it was just like a wild experience to have when I was only 17. Okay, and then now, I guess maybe a slightly better picture, but in the 9 years since I graduated from Tufts, I actually visited Tufts when I went to the conference in Boston in 2015, and funny enough, that's where I ended up going to school. Kind of got inspired to pursue engineering, got degrees in mechanical engineering and computer science. In college, continued kind of working in the aerospace and with NASA. Helped analyze some microgravity electromagnetic radiation experiments that were performed by Marshall Space Flight Center. And kind of since graduating, kind of stayed wanting to do innovation and ended up starting my own company shortly after school, which so far we've raised about 1.3 million in venture funding, and to date have sent, I guess, like over 7 million texts through our platform.
Excellent. That sounds absolutely phenomenal.
My turn.
Your turn.
Let's clap.
Oh.
So my name's Kaylee Houseconnect, and back in 2018, I was a high school junior in Lynbrook High School in Lynbrook, New York, and I was encouraged by my AP biology teacher to apply to Genes in Space, and I applied with my idea of engineering cyanobacteria to withstand the extreme conditions on the ISS. And I was selected as a finalist, and I presented at the ISSRDC conference in San Francisco. And even though I didn't win, it was a really impactful experience for me and on my trajectory in choosing to go into science. And then since then, the following year, I went on to win a very big international science competition. And then I studied physics and astrophysics at Harvard, where I just graduated from a month ago, or 2 months ago. And during college, I took a gap year and I worked at NASA, largely inspired by meeting a lot of NASA scientists here. Throughout college, I've written publications and presented at other scientific conferences, and I'm going to be starting my PhD at MIT in physics in the fall.
Congratulations.
My name's Arthi Vijaykumar. I was also part of the Genes in Space competition in 2018. I applied with 3 teammates, Rebecca Lee, David Lee, and Michelle Sung, when we were juniors in high school in St. Paul, Minnesota. And our experiment focused on investigating DNA break repair in space in order to better understand why astronauts face an increased risk of cancer in space. And we were lucky that this experiment was chosen to fly to the ISS and launched in May of 2019. So this experiment was performed on the ISS by astronauts Nick Hague, Christina Cook, and David St. Jacques, and marked the first successful use of CRISPR-Cas9 genome editing in space. Since then, it's been really great to stay involved with Genes in Space as a program and also talk about it more broadly through avenues such as PBS Kids SciGirls program, which really aims to get young students involved in science and especially young girls in STEM. Since then, I graduated in 2023 from Yale University with a BS and MS in molecular biophysics and biochemistry. I'm currently a second-year medical student in the Harvard-MIT Health Sciences and Technology program, and my current research is in immunology, focusing on development of novel therapeutics for HIV and cancer. So I hope to kind of stay in this field and become a physician scientist, combining clinical practice with translational biological research.
So as you guys can see, they've all been up to some pretty incredible things since they were here as high schoolers. And something that I find interesting is Genes in Space itself was started by Mini-PCR, which was a startup. So we have this legacy that's very present at this conference as well of very motivated startup founders. And now you've gone on to found a startup yourself. I was kind of wondering if you could tell us a little bit about how your experience with Genes in Space brought you into the startup world and then prepared you for this leadership role you have at Market Social.
Yeah. Again, being 17 and exposed to a conference like this when I was so young, it's definitely still very impressionable, and just being able to walk around the conference. I think one of the coolest thing to me was just be able to walk around to the different exhibits and see all this new innovation, new tech that was being developed. I'm like, well, it was just so cool to me. Definitely inspired me to want to pursue a career doing something innovative in building new tech. Definitely led to me post-college deciding to, instead of working at a larger company, pursuing work at a Series A startup, where I kind of learned a little bit of the ropes of what startup life was like, and about a year later ended up wanting to dive into it myself. But I think just at a young age, being exposed to all that innovation definitely left an imprint that led me to want to pursue an entrepreneurial career.
Amazing. And then, you've stayed really close to kind of this space research and this space background. Your interests have clearly orbited closely around astrophysics specifically, and we see you've been very, very successful in that field with the experience at NASA and your scholarships and your fellowships and your upcoming PhD. And I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit about how your experience with Genes in Space kind of how did it inspire you, and how did it also maybe motivate your community? Maybe your high school, did they stay involved in space stuff? Is it part of what drove you to continue this trajectory?
Yeah, so thank you for the question. So to answer the first part about how Genes in Space and coming to this conference impacted me and my decision to pursue physics and astrophysics, I would say that growing up, I kind of always knew that I wanted to do something in science, but I didn't know exactly what. And I'm not sure I actually even knew what being a scientist looked like. So getting to come here in 11th grade and meet people at all stages of becoming a scientist, I met undergrads, I met grad students, I had a grad student mentor who worked at MIT through the Genes in Space program. I met postdocs and then career scientists. It was really motivating to see oh, this is the path that I want to be on. I remember walking around to all the posters and seeing how I learned so much basically from being here. So that was really exciting for me. And it also made me really want to work at NASA. So going into college, that was one of the things I was most excited about, trying to get an internship there. Because of COVID, I ended up taking a year off and getting to work there for a whole year, which was amazing. And then to the second part of your question about how being a part of Genes in Space impacted my community, yeah, I really can't overstate how much it did impact my community. So the first thing I would talk about is maybe the excitement within my community for having a Genes in Space finalist. So right after being named a finalist, my community invited me to speak at a Girls in STEM event. And so I just spoke a little bit about what my proposal was. And now 5 years later, this year I met someone who was a middle schooler at the event that I spoke at and who said that learning about my experience in Genes in Space was really exciting and inspiring for her, and was one of the reasons she tried to enter this competition and pursue science. The other thing was that in the year that I entered Genes in Space, one of the awards for being a finalist was having a mini PCR machine donated to your high school. And at the time, I don't think my high school had a PCR machine, and if we did, it didn't work. So it was great. I got to help lead a learning lab in my biology classroom where we pretended there was an outbreak on the ISS. And then my school that year successfully applied for a grant for $5,000 to purchase more mini PCR machines, which today help fuel learning in biology and forensics classrooms. And I think getting that grant from my community was largely inspired by seeing student success at a program like Genes in Space.
That's excellent. It's really cool to hear that not only did you contribute that mini PCR machine, but it then inspired them to go get more. And I do love that little lab that they do, the contamination lab. It's excellent. Mini PCR itself is a wonderful, wonderful startup. And if you're not familiar with it, you should all stick around for the startups panel where you'll hear one of the founders talk a little bit about it. I love mini PCR, and they didn't even pay me to say that. So last but not least, Arti, I know that since winning in 2018, you've stayed really close with the Genes in Space community and your team, and especially your mentor, and you've kind of taken that momentum to also do some science outreach. And I was just wondering, how did that mentorship contribute to how you approach scientific challenges in your life and kind of inspire you to take on that role for other people?
Yeah, thank you. So I really think mentorship was one of the biggest and most rewarding parts of my experience with Genes in Space, and so I'm still very close with my mentor, Dennis, and that's one of the most valuable relationships I've ever developed. And so I think throughout the Genes in Space competition, but even more so afterwards, finishing high school, navigating college admissions, and then 4 years later, medical school admissions, he was one of the biggest sources of support and guidance that I really could have imagined. And I think as someone who stayed wanting to pursue a career in research, he was kind of the first one to always tell me that I really could do anything in that field, to put the perspectives of taking those next steps in my mind, and then also just helping me on a very tangible level to help locate research opportunities and academic opportunities and choose between them to figure out what would be the best fit for me. So, he always had some guidance to offer no matter what the situation was. And I think, honestly, he's really deeply influenced my views on what mentorship looked like in my life, and he set the standards really, really high. And so it's great to still be close with him. And I think just since the competition and beyond, seeing how generous he's been with his time and energy and wisdom both in and out of our academic lives for myself and honestly my whole team. It's really driven me to a place where like I definitely want to pay it forward as well, whether that's mentoring younger students in a lab setting like he first did with us, or just talking about science to younger kids and getting them involved and excited about it through other avenues.
Amazing. Yeah, the mentors are such a key piece of the Genes in Space community, and I think for all of us, especially as a high schooler, getting to work with these PhD scientists and figure out, you know, what does it look like? What does pursuing this career potentially have in store for us was, I think, one of the most powerful pieces of the whole Genes in Space experience. And one of the other things that Genes in Space does for us as finalists is it brings us to this conference, and every year it brings at minimum 5, potentially more depending on how big teams are, high school students to see what a scientific conference looks like. And one of the things that has always stuck out to me, especially at the ISS conference, is the fact that it shows that no science, and especially space flight, happens alone. Like everything we do here is a huge collaboration between a bunch of individuals and organizations to get these ideas happening, to get people and things safely to space. And I was wondering, for you guys, as this probably one of your first big introductions to big kid science, seeing it as a collaborative act, how has that shaped how you now approach scientific research and academic questions and problems in your own lives?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'll start. I mean, being 17, I know I studied, so I studied engineering, right, in college. I don't think when I first started, had applied to the Genes in Space competition, I don't really think I even knew what engineering was, right? I mean, I knew what chemistry, biology, and all these different areas of study were, but I really didn't know what engineering was. And then I think just be able to see the application of technologies again, right? And yeah, I mean, again, we submitted these proposals that were, I don't know, just a couple pages long, and having the mentors available and all the resources to be able to develop that experiment, really it was just kind of an exposure to, I guess, what engineering and science was truly, and how that looks out in the real world, right? Because we'd really only been seeing it in a classroom setting. Yeah. And there's just such it was just such an awesome opportunity to be able to see that before even going to college. And I think just that's just a great thing about the competition is that exposure. And I felt like it prepared me so much more for everything I did in college and beyond.
Yeah, so for me, like I said, I don't think I really knew what being a scientist was like. I mean, I'd seen it in the movies, and I think I had this image of, a lone, mad scientist, thinking of everything and coming up with everything on their own. But then coming here and seeing, this is a huge collaboration for a scientific lab in space, and then you walk around to the posters, and you see, not a single poster has just one name on it. I think that's also, it gives you a push to go into science, especially when you don't feel totally prepared. I don't think I could have come up with my experimental proposal that I presented here all by myself, but I received so much mentorship, and that helps you. So I think today, that lesson definitely carries through with me. I am always seeking out great people to collaborate with. When I need help with something, I'm always looking for mentors to ask and to lean on. And so I think I got that exposure here for the first time.
Yeah, I would agree on a lot of those points. I think that being treated as a genuine scientific collaborator at the age of 17 was really formative and really incredible for me. For my team, it was kind of in 2 parts. So first, we applied as a group of 4, and I think recognizing through the months that we worked on our proposal that we were each bringing different skills and different background knowledge to the table, even in the work that we were doing amongst ourselves, was something to really learn from for us. But then later on, when we were working on preparing the experiment for launch, we got to work with all these incredible scientists at NASA and Boeing and Mini-PCR and many other companies just to get our experiment up there. And I think we were able to see how everyone had a very different but very instrumental role in making this project happen. And to be kind of talking with them frequently and contributing our ideas, even if we were the least experienced people in the room, but to be heard and for those opinions to be valued was really, really cool. And I think that for me, it led me going forward into college and beyond to continue to want to put myself in settings where I might be the person who knows the least in the room, but there's still a lot that I can bring and a lot that I can learn. And I think in every research setting, it's really made me focus on how building the team and investing in a team is just as important, and doing the same with the science. And so that's something that's been really influential in all the research and academic settings I've been in since then.
Yeah, and so something that I think you all just mentioned or alluded to is the first step of Genes in Space is just kind of writing a proposal and coming up with a proposal. And it's very achievable for high school students. There's no fancy technology. There's no, no lab required. You just need to have a good idea and a group of people that you're willing to approach this idea with. So I just have kind of one final super quick question for all of you, which is, I bet everyone in here knows someone in high school, someone who really likes science, really likes space, but maybe doesn't know, where to start and where to go with that. So, what would you tell them about getting involved in space research?
I think the big thing is just you got to try. Like, I think, I don't even remember like us applying really for the proposal. I mean, 9 years ago, and so very young, but I remember just like getting a call one day from Sebastian, who's one of the founders at Mini PCR, was like, "You're going to be a finalist." We're like, "What? Well, this is insane! Like, this is crazy!" And then like getting flown up to Boston, working with a Harvard professor, and all this. I just feel like like from something I think like someone growing up, just like make sure you always take chances, grab opportunities when you have them, because you never know will take you, and I think I apply that as well to like my own company I started. I don't know, like I think a lot of people like the concept of that is scary. Like, oh, can I really be someone that starts my own company, like, and not just be someone supporting at another company? But I think being kind of thrust into a project, like kind of what Arthi was talking about just, oh yeah, you're 17, you're going to lead this like big project proposal in front of an audience, right, in Boston. I think is just really transformative and really helps like build that confidence for like, hey, now I can do something myself. I don't need to be the most experienced person in the room. I just need to be the one that tries to do it.
Yeah. Would you guys agree?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, thank you all so much for coming and listening to us kind of talk about our experiences and listening to our wonderful panel share their experiences. I just wanted to extend, a final set of thanks to a huge number of people, including Kevin Foley and Scott Copeland from Boeing, who have been instrumental in making the Genes in Space contest happen year after year. It wouldn't exist without them. Dr. Sebastian Craves, Dr. Ezekiel Alvarez Saavedra, Dr. Ali Huang, Dr. Katie Martin, and Mark Bliss from Mini PCR Bio. So that's the whole Genes in Space and Mini PCR team that kind of keeps this contest running year to year. Nicole Nichols from New England Biolabs, and then every mentor who's been involved way back since 2015, all of the wonderful graduate students who have dedicated their time to Genes in Space. If you guys have more questions, for these Genes in Space alumni, we'll be at the Boeing booth at the Marketplace Expo later, and they'd love to talk to you more. And if you want to see what the high schoolers are up to this year, they'll be presenting their ideas tomorrow morning, and then the winners of this year's Genes in Space contest will be announced on Thursday morning. So definitely keep an ear out for that as well and see the incredible things that they're up to. Thank you.